Emily Navarro never thought she would have to choose between her morals and her daughter's life. Yet there she was, standing in the cramped, run-down kitchen of her East Hollywood apartment, holding a hospital bill with trembling hands and tearful eyes as the doctor's words echoed in her mind. Luna needs heart surgery within the next 2 months. Without it, the risk of complications is extremely high. Luna was only 8 years old, a little girl who loved painting, dreaming, and who had never known a day of full health. Emily had done everything she could, working overtime at the sewing shop, mending wedding dresses through the night, even selling the old sewing machine her mother once gave her. But it still wasn't enough. That morning, she nibbled on a stale piece of toast while checking client orders on her phone. Most of her customers, wealthy housewives from Beverly Hills, wanted rushed work, but none of them knew that the patient seamstress they relied on was silently fighting to keep her child alive. Luna's cough echoed from the tiny bedroom down the hall, and Emily clenched the bill tighter in her hand. She stepped into her daughter's room, gently kissed her forehead. "I'll figure it out, baby. I promise." She didn't know how, only that whatever it took, she would. That night, Emily sat at the kitchen table, the bill lying flat like a sentence passed down. The dull yellow light couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. She had tried everything. Bank loans, denied. Family help, none available. Charity programs, wait lists miles long. Her phone buzzed. It was Sophia, her best friend since high school, and the only person who stayed after Emily's family disowned her for getting pregnant young and alone. "You hanging in there?" Sophia asked the moment she picked up. Emily didn't answer. She just let out a tired sigh. Luna can't wait for some list to start moving. There was a pause on the line before Sophia spoke slowly. "I know someone. She might help you make money fast. It's not illegal, but it's not exactly what you'd expect to do either." "What is it?" "Her name's Madeline Brooks. She runs a high-end companion agency for upscale events. VIP clients. The pay is really good." Emily gave a dry, bitter laugh. "You mean an escort agency?" "No, not like that. This isn't about sex. These are rich men who need someone elegant and sharp for galas, business dinners. Madeline only works with women who know how to hold their ground and keep boundaries." "You think I fit that mold?" Emily asked skeptically. "You're not that mold, Em. But you're a mom, and I know you'd do anything for your daughter." Emily said nothing for a long time. 3 days later, dressed in an old white blouse and simple black slacks, Emily stepped into Madeline Brooks' Beverly Hills office. The air smelled of expensive perfume and silence. Madeline, a silver-haired woman in her 50s with an elegant bun, scanned her from head to toe. "You have storyteller's eyes," she said. "A woman like you makes people want to listen. I have a client who needs someone to accompany him to a charity gala this Friday. If you accept, your fee will be $2,500.00 for one night." Emily swallowed hard. Just one night. One night to save her daughter. On Friday night, Emily stood in the lobby of the Wilshire Grand Hotel, her hands gently gripping a borrowed clutch from Sophia. The sapphire blue evening gown Madeline had selected hugged her slender figure, complementing her fair skin and the brown hair swept up into a classic bun. No one would have guessed she was a single mother barely holding things together to save her daughter. A man in a tuxedo approached. "Ms. Navarro?" he asked, his voice deep and composed. "Yes," Emily nodded. It was her first time seeing Julian Cross. Tall, striking, with sharp eyes and an unreadable face. As one of the most powerful tech CEOs in California, Julian carried an aura of authority and distance. "We have 10 minutes before the event begins," Julian said as they entered a private lounge. "This is a charity gala for children with heart conditions. Several strategic partners will be present. Your role tonight is to accompany me, engage in small talk when needed, and maintain appearances." Emily looked at him. "Are you always this blunt?" Julian tilted his head, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. "I pay for professionalism, not flattery." She pressed her lips together. "Then you might be disappointed." Julian gave her another glance, and this time, Something in his eyes softened. There was a tone in her voice he hadn't expected. Not submission, honesty, a rare thing in his world. As the night unfolded, Emily found she wasn't lost in the crowd. Julian didn't abandon her, but introduced her as a friend with a keen eye for design. When asked, Emily shared that she once studied fashion design, but had to drop out for her daughter. "You have talent," Julian said as they danced, "but you're burying it." "And you're burying your feelings," she replied. "That's a waste too." For the first time that night, Julian smiled. Not the polite kind, but a real, blooming smile. At the end of the evening, Emily braced herself to leave, expecting him to hand her an envelope. But instead, Julian spoke. "I need a personal stylist. Someone with good taste and the guts to speak the truth. Full-time. Triple tonight's rate." Emily's eyes widened. "Are you offering me a real job?" Julian nodded. "I trust my instincts. And tonight, I didn't just see a companion. I saw someone who matters." Emily stood speechless. She walked in seeking survival, but tonight, life had quietly handed her a second chance. Emily started her new job just days after the gala. Julian's office was in a sleek glass tower in downtown Los Angeles, where everything was cold, precise, and arranged like a strategic battlefield. Yet amidst all the perfection, Emily stood out. Perhaps because she wasn't perfect. And maybe that was exactly why she mattered. Her first assignment was to reassess Julian's entire wardrobe. When she stepped into a walk-in closet the size of her apartment, all she could say was, "Is this a bank or a closet?" Julian gave a faint smile. "I like simplicity." "No, you like boredom," Emily replied, her fingers brushing over rows of identical gray and navy suits lined up like soldiers. Julian didn't argue. He just stood there, quietly observing her, perhaps realizing for the first time that someone dared to speak plainly to him, and he didn't mind it one bit. In the days that followed, they began working in sync. Emily scheduled fittings, explored new designers, and suggested style changes based on who Julian truly was, which she was slowly discovering. After each session, they often ended with small conversations about fashion, work, and sometimes loneliness. Julian started opening up. He told her how his parents had died when he was 16, leaving him and his younger sister, Tessa, to fend for themselves. Emily listened in silence. She knew what it felt like to lose a family. Hers had turned their backs on her when she made one mistake too young. One afternoon, Julian said hesitantly, "I want to meet Luna." Emily looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure? She's shy, and her condition makes some people uncomfortable." "I'm not some people." A few days later, Julian arrived at their small apartment with a box of pastries and a bouquet of wildflowers. Luna, shy at first, soon warmed up to him thanks to his gentle voice and funny stories about robots and tech mishaps. That evening, Emily stood by the window, watching her daughter and Julian laugh on the floor. A strange feeling rose in her chest. Warmth, but laced with fear. Fear that if she let herself dream, it could all disappear. "You really don't have to do this," she whispered as she walked him to the door. "I want to," Julian replied, his voice steady. "Not out of obligation, but for you and for Luna." Happiness is often more fragile than we think. Just a few weeks after Julian met Luna, a sudden blow struck the budding life Emily was beginning to rebuild. That morning, her phone wouldn't stop vibrating. Messages came in from Sophia, from old clients, even from someone she didn't quite remember. They all sent the same link. The front page of a tabloid gossip site screamed the headline, "From escort to CEO's girlfriend, Emily Navarro and her hidden past." Alongside the title were images of her entering Madeline Brooks' office, followed by a series of pictures of her and Julian walking together, laughing at another gala event. Emily felt the blood drain from her face. Her heart pounded chaotically. She had always known that this might come one day, but never imagined it would arrive so fast and so cruelly. She called Julian. No answer. She called again, Still nothing. She texted him, "I need to explain, this isn't the full truth." But all she received in return was silence. At Julian's office, the tension was palpable. His personal assistant handed him a printed copy of the article, though he had already read it hours earlier. Julian's face remained stoic, but his eyes were a storm. "Who sent this?" he asked, his voice low and sharp as a blade. When he learned the source was Logan Pierce, his longtime business partner, Julian remained quiet for a long time. Logan offered a justification. "I was just trying to protect you. She doesn't belong in our world." "No," Julian replied coldly. "You were protecting your own ego." The next day, Emily received an official email terminating her contract. Attached was a generous severance payment, enough to cover Luna's medical bills and give her a new start. But her heart wasn't as easily mended as the numbers in her bank account. Luna's surgery was a success. The doctors assured her that Luna would make a full recovery. But even as Emily held her daughter in her arms, she still felt an aching emptiness inside. That night, she sat alone with her old sketchbook. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, she allowed herself to draw again. On the bottom corner of the page, she wrote with a trembling hand, "Braveheart, born from pain, stitched together with hope." 1 year had passed. Emily now owned a small boutique called Braveheart Atelier in Silver Lake, a quiet, artsy corner of Los Angeles. The sketches, once born from despair, now hung as finished pieces under soft golden lights. Luna, healthier than ever, sat in the corner doing homework, occasionally glancing up to smile at her mom. One March afternoon, the shop door opened. Emily looked up, and her heart skipped a beat. Julian stood there, no suit, no stiffness, just a man with uncertain eyes and a bouquet of wildflowers, the same kind he'd brought the first time he met Luna. "I didn't know if you'd want to see me," he said softly, "but I couldn't let things end the way they did." Emily stared at him for a long moment. No more anger, just questions that had never found their voice. "I read that article 100 times, Julian continued, "and one day, I asked myself, does your desperation make you less? Or does it prove you're the bravest mother I've ever known?" She couldn't speak. "I started a charity called Braveheart because 2 people taught me something priceless. That love doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be real." He stepped forward and placed the flowers on the table. "I'm not here asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to walk beside you again." Emily slowly stepped toward him, her hand trembling as it touched his. From the corner of the room, Luna watched, her eyes shining with hope. And then, in the sunlight flooding the boutique, they embraced. Not as old lovers reuniting, but as 2 people finally finding their way home. And in that quiet moment, something inside her softened. The pain hadn't vanished, but something else took its place. A beginning. 5 years later, golden dusk fell gently over the waves, bathing the Malibu coastal home in soft honey light. The sound of crashing surf mixed with children's laughter, creating a living symphony. So peaceful, it felt as if even time had chosen to pause here. In the backyard, Emily Navarro stood on the terrace, a cup of herbal tea in hand, watching her children play. Luna, now 13, was teaching the twins, Leo and Jasmine, how to blow the biggest soap bubbles. Leo, ever clumsy, spilled the solution all over the deck, sending Jasmine into fits of giggles. Emily smiled. A home, not glamorous, not perfect, but real, down to its core. "I bet you're composing poetry in your head," came a familiar low voice behind her. Julian stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her. "Not poetry," she chuckled, leaning into his chest. "Just gratitude for things that once seemed impossible becoming real." "Same here," he whispered. "A family, a home filled with laughter. Once those things felt so far away. Then you came, pulled me back to life, taught me how to feel again." They stood quietly, letting the sea breeze sweep over years of memories. Braveheart Atelier had grown into a renowned sustainable fashion label, with branches in New York and Tokyo. Emily still kept her design studio in Silver Lake, where everything began. As a reminder of the journey, Julian, now retired from his CEO role, dedicated his days to the Brave Heart Foundation, supporting single mothers and children with heart conditions. He was no longer the cold businessman. Now he was a gentle husband, a dad with terrible jokes, and a man who always brought fresh wild flowers to the kitchen each morning. "Mom, Dad, Leo put yogurt in Jasmine's sandals," Luna yelled, snapping them back to the present. Emily laughed. Julian shook his head and walked down. "Dad, to the rescue!" As the sun melted into the horizon, Emily sat on the porch steps, eyes resting on her family, where old wounds had been mended with love and forgiveness. She was no longer the woman who once gave up everything for a single night to save her child. She had weathered the storm, discovered her worth, and chosen to live fully in the life she had built. Under the orange sky, Luna looked up and asked, "Mom, if you hadn't gone to that party all those years ago, what would have happened?" Emily smiled, her gaze following Julian, piggybacking both twins through the grass. "Maybe life would have taken longer to find us," she said softly. "But some love stories are meant to find their way home, no matter how lost they get." She turned her gaze back to the horizon, where the sky melted into the sea. Just like the paths that had once felt impossible, now quietly becoming one.